Huddle Up with Gus is partnered with and distributed by TribLive.com. TribLive.com is your source for local news in Western Pennsylvania. Get breaking news and the best sports commentary around from Tim Benz, Mark Madden, Kevin Gorman, and more online at TribLive.com.
Coming from a small town in rural North Carolina, he went on to star at the University of Tennessee. Drafted in the first round by the Washington Redskins, he was involved with Gus in a classic training camp quarterback battle. After 5 years in the NFL, he went on to serve 3 terms as a highly popular member of Congress. Please welcome into the huddle, Heath Shuler.
All right, so Heath, it's called Huddle Up with Gus, and we appreciate you getting in the huddle with us today.
Well, Gus, it's always great to be in your huddle.
Unfortunately, Heath and I never got to be in the huddle at the same time.
Never, not at the same time.
The only position that doesn't get to do that.
Yeah, it's one at a time for you guys.
One at a time for us. So, Heath, where we always start is that moment in your life that you can remember as far back as possible that was influential for you. Was it a parent? Was it a brother? Was it an uncle? Somebody that really put that bug of the love of sports into your life?
It would definitely have to be both my parents. They actually volunteered all of their free time for the Swain County Youth Athletic Association. And so they were in charge of raising money, helping out with concession stand, getting referees and umpires. And so they handled both baseball and football. So it was kind of born into me that we showed up, and every weekend my brother and I spent on the baseball fields. And then as older we got, had a chance to play football. And so it ended up being, we didn't know any better. We thought that's what every kid was supposed to do. But there was always that one coach, as you're saying, and it was my high school coach that really kind of showed me the love of the game. And it started out when I was in the 7th grade. He was one of these coaches, went back to the elementary schools and middle schools and said, okay, they're going to identify a guy that can play quarterback. I need a quarterback. I need a running back, and identify those positions. And so I'll never forget, he came to PE class and watched us, kind of participate in the class. And he come up to me and said, I really want you to start focusing on, football. And I know you play all the sports, and I want you to play all the sports. And I really want you to start spending some time with us. So as a 7th grader, I got 6th and 7th grade, I got a chance to really get to know our high school football coach, and Coach Boyce Dietz. And from that point on, he not only did I coach, but once I got into Congress, he actually worked for my team on the congressional staff.
That's awesome. And one of the things is that, and I think people don't understand this today, is that you probably didn't come from a very big city.
No. 600 people in the city of Bryson City.
Right. And one of the things that, Dave, I always try to tell people, you don't have to go to the biggest high school and go get recruited by you. If you play and you love the game, they will find you if you're good.
They will.
And I'm sure Bryson City was smaller than Ford City, where I came from. But Heath, what was that like growing up in that small town?
Well, there was 88 that graduated in my senior class, and there was always high expectations in sports. Football being at the top of that list. My sophomore, junior, and senior year, we won the state championship all 3 years, and so expectations were always high. And as they always say, on Friday night, the city kind of the whole county, we were the county school, Swain County. At that time, around 10,000 people in the whole entire county. Were the North Carolina side, the gateway to the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. We only have the whole county, 86% of it's the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. So we only have a very small community, that's kind of a tax base, if you will, and a very small population. So there wasn't a lot to do on Friday nights, and there really is not a lot to do at any point in time. So athletics played a very important role. And so the entire community would come out to watch the games. And so even a county of 10,000 people, we would still have 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 people at a game.
Wow. So you mentioned your brother Benji. Is he younger or older than you?
He's a younger brother, so he's a couple of years behind me in school, and he and I ultimately went on and played at Tennessee together.
Wow, that'd be interesting. So you played most of your sports. He was a little younger, but you played a lot of sports together when you were in.
We did. My dad was always a proponent of both of us moving up in age, and so he would move up in age, and I would move up in age, and so we didn't play as much baseball together or football until actually we got into high school because my dad always made us play with older kids to make us better.
So was your dad? You mentioned your parents giving you a love of sports. Were they athletes?
Yes, my mom's family is very athletic, and she always tries to take credit for the athleticism in the family. My dad, he played softball, played college. He didn't have enough money to even make it to college on a college scholarship, and so actually went to work as a postman early on in life, and so he was a basketball player. My mom's family, very athletic family as well. And we always just participated in athletics, and very competitive family, as you could guess.
So when you guys would play sports, did your parents, when you were younger, did they, I left football and I would still go play some softball and do other things. Did you used to go watch your parents play different sports?
Yeah, my mom played softball and my father played softball. So when we were young, we would actually go with them, and we spent a lot of times. My dad would travel around the Southeast and played at a very high level of softball. So we would travel around the Southeast and watch him on weekends when we were not participating in our own sporting activities. He would actually participate. So when we were really young, before we started playing, t-ball and little league, we would actually follow my father around and watch him play.
I mean, that's basketball country down there too. Did you play basketball in high school?
I played, but I was probably the worst basketball player you could ever imagine. Gus, you know how when you throw a football, you kind of flip your wrist out? Well, I would shoot a basketball, and it always went to the right every single time. So I wasn't a great basketball player, but I could rebound and I could jump. And so they played me at center, even though I was only 6'3" at the time. But, I played center even though the other guys were bigger because I could jump.
I was the same way. I wasn't a very good basketball player, but I could get in there and bang it around for a little bit. So.
It's all about positioning.
It was. Yeah, it was all about, and I had bony elbows, so guys never wanted to. So Heath, the other thing is I remember from you, another part of sporting for you was hunting, and we talk a little bit about that, and we're going to get in that in future shows. But for me, outdoor life is sporting as well. People think that just being an athlete on a field is sporting, but there's other sporting that you can do that I have many friends that fish, hunt, just do other things outside that are just incredible. And I know that was a big part of your upbringing as well.
Yeah, it was. And growing up in an area like we did, I mean, that was a part of your tradition, your heritage, is actually learning how to hunt. And, it was passed down from generation to generation. So my father would take me, and he would teach us how to hunt, how to, to navigate through the woods and watch sign. And so as that grew on, we kind of got into big game hunting, but ultimately kind of got into more of a gentleman's hunting, if you will, the upland. So quail hunting, grouse hunting, especially in the mountains of North Carolina, there's you have to put a lot of time in and walk a lot of miles before you see a grouse. And it was never about the kill. It was always about the sportsmanship and the time together and camaraderie together with the people you were hunting with. And so I enjoyed that more than, I still enjoy a good venison or a good quail, but spending time with family and friends was more important.
Now, what kind of big game hunting?
So deer hunting, typically. I like to deer hunt. Not as much as I used to. But when we were with the Redskins, I know Jamie Asher and I, we spent a lot of time hunting, and a couple of times I think we even went before work. So there was a couple of tree stands there at Redskins Park that we actually, the maintenance guys let us in on. So we actually would go out and hunt before our meetings.
Well, that's what's crazy, right? Is Redskin Park, you could go hunt right beside the park.
Oh, yeah, we did all the time. Yes.
And now you can't even it's just completely overrun with businesses and roads and stuff. It's one of the busiest counties in the country.
Well, living in Ashburn Village, I would actually take the back way, and I never would get on a paved road until I pulled into the parking lot. So I could actually take all the back roads through all the sod fields and come right to Redskin Park.
Right, no, and he should have grown up hunting. I mean, 86% of the county he was in was national forest.
It's right.
Yeah, so the other part, one of the places I visited in your county, I think it's in your county, is Dollywood.
Oh yeah, it's on the other side of the mountain. So that's in Tennessee, just across the state line. It is, yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's Annie and I, my wife and I, we were coming back from college one time and we stopped there for, I don't know why. That was like our spot. We drove all day and we stopped in Dollywood and we actually got lost on a hike in Dollywood.
Well, you can get lost pretty easily in the park.
Yeah, we weren't smart. We were young. We went out. It was right before dark. We're in the mountains and it's dark and we're like, uh-oh. And when you have to sign your name in when you start a hike, and they came and found us. It was crazy. Well, that just shows you it's a little nuts where he grew up.
Dollywood's still on my list. I haven't checked that one off yet.
To meet Dolly Parton or just go to Dollywood?
But actually both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's talked about for a lot of things, but she only has a 17-inch waist.
I didn't know that.
Right, that's a fact.
That's a fact?
Yeah.
So you go through your youth experience. You probably knew where you were going to go to high school. And so you get to high school, you play 2 sports. What was your high school experience like? I know from 9th grade on, it had to be crazy for you.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think so much of it talked about leadership, and we had a great coaching staff. So the coaching staff had been intact for a very long time and a great tradition. So they had won in 79 and 85 was the 2 state championships prior to our 88, 89, and 90 year. So it was a rich tradition of and always participating at a very high level. Well, obviously growing up in a real small school, 88 graduated my senior class, we had to play all sports. So in the fall was only football, but the winter sport with basketball, I would play basketball through the week, and then on weekends I would go to wrestling tournaments. And then in the spring we played both baseball and ran track, which track ultimately, that was truly my favorite sport. Track was my all-time favorite. I enjoyed that probably as much as anything I had ever done, but football was kind of that avenue.
What were your events?
So I was a high jump and hurdler.
Wow.
So I was a 6'10" high jumper.
Wow.
Yeah, he could jump.
6'10", 220 pounds.
Heath may have had the biggest calves I've ever seen.
Wow.
He could jump.
That's impressive.
He definitely could jump. So Heath, you won 2 state championships in football. Did you?
3.
3. I
thought 3.
Oh,
that's wrong. But he said 3 earlier.
Oh, okay. I was reading your notes.
And 2 in track in the high jump.
That's what I was going to ask you. So, how many other state championships were you in baseball, or just in track?
So my senior year, we won it in football. We were runner-ups in baseball, and I got my pitching debut, the state championship game. My cousin was the pitcher, hurt his side, and ended up pulling him. And I went in and Gus, the bases was loaded, and had a guy that ultimately ended up playing in the majors. And I got up and I said, I'm just going to throw it as hard as I can by this guy. The ball still is rising as it went over the fence. I never even turned around to look at it. And it was a grand slam, and we got beat. That was my pitching debut in baseball.
You should have did what my dad used to tell me. My dad used to tell me to throw the first one at their head and then throw the next one over the plate.
That I should have listened to that. That would have been good advice. Yeah.
So Heath, at what point did you start to get feeling that you could probably play at the next level, college football? When did you start getting recruited?
So we took our high school took a team camp to NC State. And so I was going into my sophomore year. And at that point in time, they couldn't offer underclassmen. And so I went to the camp. They thought I was going to be a senior. And so NC State offered me, and then quickly had to decline, we really didn't offer you. So at that point in time, I knew it was, things were going well. And I was able to throw with all the seniors that were at the camp. And at that point in time, they started coming to games when the season opened up for them to come to. And I went to the Gus Purcell quarterback school, which was a school that was only high school quarterbacks, and it was coached by a lot of college coaches until the NCAA rules changed. So at that point in time, I was going into my sophomore year as well. And so a lot of these college coaches that were coaching there were, you could tell they were being extra nice and extra friendly and, can't wait to come watch you play and that kind of stuff. So it kind of started my sophomore year.
Well, that's great. So who was your first big letter like, hey, we really want you to come to our school?
So I guess the biggest one that kind of come around early was actually Florida. And Chapel Hill and South Carolina was kind of the first three that came, and obviously NC State. And it really wasn't until my start of my senior year, because things have certainly changed now in recruiting. It wasn't until my senior year that Tennessee kind of come into the play, and Miami came into play, and Notre Dame. So I went to Notre Dame and Miami and Florida and Alabama and Tennessee was my official visits. Well, my dad being a mailman and my mom volunteering her time for the youth program, we didn't have a lot of money growing up as a kid. So for my parents to go to Notre Dame or to go to Florida or even go to Alabama was going to be a very difficult, both financially and time-wise. So a 2-hour drive to Knoxville, and the fan base that was there, they threw the ball a lot. Unlike Alabama at the time, didn't throw the ball as much. And staying close to home and growing up in the western part of North Carolina, you got a really close attachment to the state of Tennessee, just because of I was closer there than I was Chapel Hill or NC State, a 2-hour drive versus 5.5-hour drive.
Yeah, so I'm sure if you would have mentioned to Florida that, hey, look, I would love to come here, but my parents can't afford it, I'm sure there would have been a booster or somebody that could have helped out.
Not Florida.
Notre Dame, maybe not, but Florida, maybe.
I was just too naive to work that process at the time, I guess.
Who would have known if you would have went back, like everything you learned in politics, I'm sure you could have went back and struck a nice deal.
Oh, yeah, it would have been a different story, Gus, altogether. Yeah.
Day like in Knoxville. I've never been there for a game. It looks amazing.
Well, it's pretty exciting. They have the Vol Navy, so the stadium is right next to the river. And so a lot of people come to the games via boat. And so they stop and they get out. They got a big dock there, and they go up to walk up to the stadium, which is, a very short distance away. And I guess really the vibe, 107,000 people in the stands. There was 97,000 when I played there. And it's an entire state. You do have Vandy and you do have Memphis and you have some of the smaller schools, but in theory, everyone's focused in that whole state's the University of Tennessee. So you have such a amount of support from not only in East Tennessee, but throughout the entire state. So people would come in, and the craziest part, they would start coming in for a Saturday game on Thursday. So you would start seeing people on Thursday, and certainly Friday. It was almost like a game day on campus.
What was the first game you played in, where you started a game in college?
So my first start would have been, Southwest Louisiana was, I think, our first opener. That was the first game that I actually started and played. And then the next week we went to Georgia and played Georgia between the hedges. And they were a top 5 ranked team, and we come from behind in the fourth quarter and won. So that was kind of the most memorable game my sophomore year.
So that first start you got, were you pretty nervous?
Yeah, it was kind of, I don't know if as much as nervous as I was. There was just so much to think about that I didn't pay any attention to the crowd and the crowd noise or the excitement, because as you well know, Gus, focusing on what your task at hand and your responsibilities sometimes just overshadows everything else going around you.
Yeah, my first start was at Arkansas, and I can remember I was deer in the headlights, and they blitzed, They were literally bringing every linebacker, and I took like 3 shots in a row, and it took those 3 shots to like clear all the cobwebs, and then it just reminds you to get back in the game and start playing, because my line at Tulsa wasn't the same line that Heath had at Tennessee.
I was fortunate. I had a great line at Tennessee, a really great line. I think I got sacked more my first start in the NFL than I did my last entire season at Tennessee.
Wow.
You're probably wondering what the hell is going on. I thought the NFL
I
was
didn't
supposed
know
to.
people did that. I mean, I always had the luxury of just kind of doing what I wanted to, because we really had a great, very talented offensive line.
Yeah, so you set several records at Tennessee. You had an amazing career at Tennessee. What was one of your most memorable moments that you had at playing at Tennessee?
Well, there was a lot of fun games that, always brings back great memories. Going to Georgia, we had my sophomore year, having a top 5 team ranked on the ropes late in the game, playing in a very tough environment. It was 4th and 16. And, an incomplete pass, they get the ball back, they can kneel it, and they walk away with a victory. A minute and a half left in the game. And I'll never forget going to the sidelines, and it was, there's always that play in practice that you just never can complete, and you just don't feel 100% confident about. Not only as a quarterback, you don't, but the team doesn't feel. Well, ironically enough, it was truly the right call, because it ultimately became successful. But David Cutcliffe, who was the offensive coordinator at the time, I'll never forget, it was called 62 Meyer. And it was a clear route by the inside slot and a deep dig route by the outside receiver. And they were in the right protection. They dropped, and they only rushed 3, dropped everybody, and we kind of caught it in that deep dig angle for an 18-yard pickup, and then I ultimately ended up running the option in for the touchdown a few plays later. So it was a big play, big time for us, and it kind of put our team, in a situation where then we became a top 10 team.
What's the hardest SEC road game in your opinion?
Florida, without a doubt. I mean, it's very difficult to play in the swamp. LSU is another one. If you play a night game in LSU, that's another really tough place to play. But I would definitely have to say Florida would be the most challenging to play. Both going there, and sometimes the heat, the humidity was tough to overcome. But, the crowd just right there on top of you. They're really energized. And they were playing very well at the time. So that was a very tough place to play.
I've been to LSU at night for a game. It's insane. It's the loudest stadium I've ever.
Oh, it is. I mean, that's a crazy place. Score early, you can quiet them down early, but if you get a chance to get the crowd in the game, it's an uphill battle.
They don't drink there.
No, we got there on a Thursday. You can imagine our condition on Saturday night. So yeah.
So Heath, you had an incredible career. You go to New York for the Heisman. What was that experience like for you to sit in there? I know you didn't win it, and you were very deserving of it. What was that whole experience like for you going through that after your senior year?
Well, first of all, I got to meet one of my childhood hero. I got to, Earl Campbell was the guy that I actually admired, wearing number 34 for the Houston Oilers. I mean, I never wanted to play quarterback. I was always wanted to be the tailback, and just so happened that I ended up getting stuck at the position, as I say, but I really always wanted to run with the football. And so meeting Earl Campbell was truly, I mean, I just couldn't believe it when I got a chance to spend some time with him. Was unbelievable. I wore 34 up until I got into high school. And that's why I wore 21, too, because it really wasn't a quarterback number. It was more of a tailback number. And I thought at maybe some point they'd put me back at tailback. But I started playing quarterback, and it never changed. But that was a great experience. Going to New York for the very first time, kind of seeing. It was very odd, though, because at that time it was at the it was Downtown Athletic Club. And I'll never forget the night. I mean, so it's a part of a hotel, and we stayed there. And my brother and I froze absolutely to death. It was snowing outside, and it was so cold that we had no heat in our room, and there was literally a big hole in the window. And we took the drapes off the window honestly, we took the drapes down and we covered up with them. He and I were in the same room together and absolutely froze to death. So the seats that I sat in they were put together with duct tape. And so until I guess Disney and all that, it all changed. I was really surprised that the lights made it look a lot better. And you could walk into the Hall of Fame there with all the Heisman, all the portraits on the wall and the Heisman Trophy winners. And it was like it had not been opened up for an entire year, that musty old smell. And so that part of it, I was totally blown away that this is not what I thought it would be. The people, though, were incredibly nice and did everything imaginable to make you feel comfortable. But it was a very, very old place.
Who are some of the other candidates? I know Charlie Ward won it, but who were like?
Yeah, Charlie Ward. So David Palmer from Alabama was there. Charlie, with those three of us there that night.
Okay.
Wow, what an experience. You think you're going to go win the highest award in college football and your hotel room is freezing. And you being from the South, you're probably like, what in the world?
Yeah, I froze to death.
And your chair is held together by duct tape.
Yeah, where are we in the right place? Maybe.
Yeah. So the next night, actually, the University of Tennessee, I guess, picked up the tab and we moved to another hotel.
Oh, there you go. You finally started using some of that politics.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the Coach Fulmer himself, I think, experienced the same thing in the same hotel room. So I think he was ready to move out too.
Oh, yeah. I bet your parents couldn't have been prouder when you were up there.
They were. It was a great experience for them because they got to go and participate and be involved in it. And it was to kind of watch your son and now have a son that plays. And you're like, wow, I mean, you have to be very proud of, the accomplishments. And it was awesome. And to represent your university. And it had only been the second time that someone at Tennessee had been invited to the Heisman, show.
A long way from Bryson City.
Long way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, so then you have this amazing college career. You go through all these things. I think there was one part of your college career that we left out, right? Didn't your wife, didn't she go to Tennessee as well?
She did. Actually, we were set up on a blind date when we were in high school. I was a senior in high school, and a teacher actually came up to me and she goes, I know you're going to find this very strange. She goes, but I think I just met your future wife. And I'm a senior in high school, and I'm like, there's no way you've met my future wife. I mean, that would be the last thing that I had thought about. So we dated a couple of times when we were in high school, went out several times. She went to another high school. We went out on the blind date, and obviously very attractive. And, I was like, I'm all in. And I went off to college. And in my freshman year, I called her on my way back home, and we met up and went on a date, and kind of the rest is history.
Wow, that's a pretty good story. It's kind of like Annie and I, we've been dating, we've been married 25 years now, going right from our third year in college on. And sometimes when you know, right?
You do. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you go through this amazing college career. When did you realize, I kind of understand the whole thing about the NFL when they're starting to come look at you, you're going through your pro day. What was that experience like for you?
Well, that was fun. I mean, it was kind of, I think the best decision that I made was actually getting with Tom Condon, who was my agent. And Tom kind of helped preface me both through the workouts and a true understanding and a guy that, and some people would think in a very difficult industry, if you will, Tom's integrity and character, I mean, still proves true today with the conversations that I still have. And, just love the guy. I mean, I owe so much to him and what he was able to help provide for me and the knowledge and the understanding of the game. Because I always try to stay focused on where I was at the moment, and that was, college, and then having that opportunity to go play, fulfill a childhood dream. It was tough leaving Tennessee. My brother I'd spent his freshman year there. He got to start the Florida game. And so, knowing that I was probably going to get to throw more to my brother, I did complete my last completion to him in college. Didn't realize it at the time. But, having him there, and obviously, my future wife was there. We were dating. And so I was leaving a lot. but to kind of fulfill that childhood dream. And, and then my backup quarterback at Jerry Copeland was the starter the next year. And first game, second series, he blows his knee out. And so I think a lot of people were disappointed at Tennessee that I left early, but I think it was like a reminder that could have very easily have been me, and not fulfill those dreams and opportunities to play in the league. And, growing up, like I said, we didn't have a lot growing up. So being able to provide for my family long term was important to me.
Did you know, at what point did you know you were going to get selected third? Were the Redskins pretty clear about who they were going to take, or was it
I didn't know exactly. I mean, I guess you listen to all the analysts, and at that time I had Tom was my agent. You started to look like you're going to be, first quarterback. So it really wasn't as much as which position, but it would be the first quarterback. And the first two teams, had pretty solid quarterbacks at the time. So we felt like it was probably going to be the Redskins. Was most likely. And then growing up in North Carolina before the Carolina Panthers, that's the team you actually, all the television that was kind of that childhood team that we all watched. And, I loved John Riggins. I loved Heisman, and watching those guys, and Art Monk. And then obviously, Gus, we got to play with Darryl Green, which was incredible, to play with. Forever. And he was still like a kid. I tell my son all the time, he was the only guy that I ever known that after practice, a really tough, he would like a kid, he would like run to his car. Of course, he ran everywhere he went. He was just like a kid. Loved Darryl and what he meant to our team. So, that was kind of where we looked at it, is we thought it would be the Redskins. And obviously I met Norv and Cam Cameron at the time. And it kind of was perfect, a perfect setting. I can't, I was nervous, obviously meeting those guys. And I had a great, conversation with both of them. And I really felt that was the place I wanted to go. Especially, Cam I felt really comfortable with him, maybe more so than I did Norv at the time. And so I wanted that's where I was hoping to go.
Yeah, so you get picked by the Redskins, and we know how it all works in OTAs and everything, and you come in for some of the off-season stuff, and then you have this where you hold out through your first training camp. How was that for you? That had to be rough. And I got to take those reps because you weren't there, and you know how that worked out. But that had to be very hard for you because you love the game, you love the sport, and you're not getting out and be out there with the guys.
Yeah. I think the most difficult thing is I actually remember taking the contract to Charlie Casserly and putting it on his desk and said, here's the contract. Because, at that point in time, you knew what the numbers were, so it was never about the money. It was, there was a voidable years clause in it. And what had happened was they started, I guess, with the other rounds first and kind of worked their way up. And, Trey was the second round pick. So Trey didn't come into camp till 3 or 4 days late. And so I went into his office, and my contract was still sitting on his desk, and everybody was in camp. It hadn't been open. And so I was like, hey, it's not my fault. And then I was getting all the blame for it. And it was just like, I don't know why people were blaming me, and it wasn't about money. Because that was irrelevant to me, period. And I guess it was the voidable years that they ultimately had to get the ruling from the NFL. And, I think Tom took criticism, but I think, he saw an area that I could void out years. After the third year, I could void those years out and renegotiate or go to another team. So that was tough. Yeah, I don't think that there was any. They had done that the year before with the other quarterbacks with Breeze and with Drew and so I really didn't. I didn't think it was an issue. The Redskins, they just didn't pick up the ball fast enough to be able to get the contract signed.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because kind of all that contract dispute with players nowadays, if you're first round pick, second round pick, they're almost a little different. And you were one of the first ones to set the tone on how things should start going. And then we get to Sam Bradford later on that just has this mega contract, and everything has really changed, you know. And so you were really one of the first ones to really start that whole progression of getting, I mean, when he signed his contract, it was a really big deal in D.C. and deservedly so. He's a first round pick, and you got to go get what you can get.
Yeah, and it was tough. I mean, so I say this, I didn't start off on the right foot with the fans. I didn't start off on the right foot with Charlie Casserly, and I didn't know what to do. I mean, I was a 20-year-old guy and did not have an idea or clue what was, what I needed to do.
Yeah, you should have signed my contract. It would have been a lot easier. Yeah, you should have signed my contract. It would have been a lot easier because there's no clauses or anything. It was just like, here, sign this. And I'm like, okay, sure, whatever you want. Exactly. Whatever you want, I'll do it. What
was your bonus?
$25,000, which was pretty good. We actually paid
that's
my wife's college off with that, so that was nice.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Heath, you finally come into the Redskins, and you join, and you know how Washington is and the media. And there I am, I'm quarterbacking, I'm taking a lot of the reps that you probably should have had, and I was lucky in that regard, and it was hard for you. And what did you think of this whole situation where there's this 7th round pick, and we know everything that happened, and we're way too old to have that affect us anymore, but I just always wondered, we never really got to sit and talk about how this affected you, and our relationship wasn't what it should have been because of a lot of that situation.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you always want to be competitive with one another, and the one good thing that I'm very thankful that you and I both did is we actually handled the relationship, with one another. We didn't let it wasn't out in the public. We handled ourselves, I think, with integrity and character, and we didn't allow the divisiveness between us. I mean, we were very competitive. You wanted to be the starter, I wanted to be the starter, and that's what you want. I mean, you want that type of competitive. It made me a better player, made me a better person, made you a better player, made you a better person to be able to do that. It was, now that I reflect back on it, I mean, it was not my offense, and I'm not placing any blame, but it was not my offense. Once I got to the West Coast offense with John Gruden with the Raiders, it was like I was at home. I mean, that was truly my thought process. And it sounds odd, but that was the same theories and the same progressions and the same things that it was more about reading the defenses and then alternate instead of is he open, kind of the Don Coryell, Ernie Zampese, North Turner. It was a much different drop back. At least with the West Coast, I could use my legs to get out of the pocket and move. And I felt like, it was kind of taking 80% of my game that I used in college was actually my feet and legs, and being able to get out of the pocket, kind of taking and stripping me from it. It's like, your best weapon, your best asset, your best tool, I didn't have it. And so after I look back on it now, and I struggled with that offense, I truly struggled. And Gus, I think that was your offense. I mean, I think that's the reason why you were successful. That was a lot of the similar offenses that you had in college. The larger, the 7-step drop back, the big play action, throw the ball down the field. I was used to that fast break, 3-step, 5-step, get the ball out really quickly. And it was it was kind of apples and oranges for me. And I didn't perform well. And I think under normal circumstances, I don't think it had anything to do with the coaches. It just wasn't my offense.
Well, I think it is. It does have something to do with the coaches, though, Heath, because I've been through the situation where I went from that digit system to the West Coast, and I'm not a West Coast quarterback. Yeah. So when you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, coaches don't really care. They said, this is our offense, and we're running it. We're not going off what suits you best. We're going to run what we run.
Yes.
And I saw an article where you talked about RG3 having similar problems, right? Where that wasn't his style, what they were trying to do with him there, and you have to fit to what your abilities are. And I felt that way when I watched you play as well, is that, you're trying to do big dropbacks, but your skill set was a lot of running. My skill set was not running.
Right.
I
Yes.
did not like running at all, right? And I felt like as much as you want to say it wasn't the coaches, they have to understand who you are and what you were about and try to work their offense to give you the best chance to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and so going to, I got hurt early in New Orleans, so I dislocated all 5 of my toes during the Oakland game in New Orleans. And so it was early in the season, my first year there. We'd won the game before, and things were starting to kind of turn around. The team was starting to gel together. Ditka was an awesome coach. Loved Mike Ditka. I mean, I have no negative comments. Loved Mike Ditka. Beyond belief, one of the greatest leaders I had ever been around. But I stepped up in the pocket. We were playing in Oakland. The baseball stadium was still early in the season, so the baseball stadium was still out. About second base, I stepped up, threw the ball to my receiver, and Chester McLaughlin, who's obviously since passed now, fell on me. And then 2 of my guys fell on, and my heel was in his chest, and my toes were in the ground. And so all that weight just brought all 5 of my toes on top of my foot, and I tore my plantar fascia. I ruptured the sesamoid bones, and I had 2 surgeries, 11 and a half months on crutches, and it's kind of funny how the media always portrays it. I don't know what my career would have been like if I would have had the chance to finish, especially with Oakland. Once I got there, it was like, I am at home. This is where I want to be. But I mean, rehabbed it, got a chance. Gruden calls me up and says, "Hey, I want you to come here." I said, "Coach, I'm in a cast. I mean, I'm in a cast for 2 more months." And he says, "I'm signing you anyway." And so Gruden signed me with the Raiders and went out there, and I learned more in my area. I learned more about the game in the 6 months that I was with John Gruden than I had known my 5-year prior combined understanding the knowledge of the game. Just an incredible coach, and truly a guy that loves the game.
One of the things that it had to be hard for you, just like I transitioned out of DC as well, but there you are, the number 1 pick. This country kid from Fort City comes in and is playing, and they love, the media loves to pit us against each other, and and you had to leave the team, and then I got to stay for a few more years, and I left the team, and then Trent took over, and it was just like, it's always one after another. But how was that?
Brad Johnson.
Right, exactly. But how was that experience for you? Like, emotionally, I still have dreams about the Skins and things that I went through, and I just wonder how that was for you. Even though it was a battle for us, it wasn't like we were head to head. You know what I mean? It was like he would go and I would go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think truly, I think in life you have to have obstacles in your life and hurdles to overcome. And it does one of 2 things. It'll make you grow and mature, and which is, I think that's what it did for me, or it makes you feel bitter. And I don't think that I ever had any bitterness toward the situation that happened. I mean, I'm still a Redskins fan. I still love the Redskins. Maybe not as much as I do the New Orleans Saints or the Raiders, but I mean, I truly have that love for the Skins, and I'm always wanting to win. Anytime they play Chicago, anytime they play New York, I want them to win. Dallas, I want them to win. But I mean, it makes us better, and it certainly prepared me for my next role in life, which ultimately become being in Congress, because, man, there are 2 contact sports, but it prepared me for kind of the negativity and people not always agreeing how you cast a vote, things like that. So it really, to me, was I needed that because I was so young. I mean, I was the youngest guy on the team, showed up there, and I needed a lot of maturity and growth. And there was some tough times at my apartment, all by myself, sitting there and wondering, nobody that. You kind of feel like it's hard to connect and communicate with somebody to understand that what you're going through, and there was some tough, challenging times, but they made me a better person.
Was there division within the locker room? Guys taking sides?
I don't really know if there were. I think that for me personally, I felt like it was just whatever the coaches decided. I don't think that there was a lot of division in the locker room. Maybe there was some. Maybe Heath felt differently about that, and you might have. But I feel like we had some good old veterans in the locker room who just wanted the best guy to play.
Yeah, I mean, we had some great, and I don't think there was really much division. They wanted to win. I mean, we were, prior to Gus and I getting there, the team was 3-13. And so it wasn't like that they were, things were going well, and Gus and I came in and we were the reason. I mean, things were going south at that point in time. But I think the real thing is we all wanted to win, and across the board, everyone in the locker room. And I think that, the Timmy Johnsons of the world, the Darryl Greens of the world, the Ken Harveys of the world, those guys, Brian Mitchells, those guys kept us together. Gus and I weren't in a situation, to lead quite yet. And, I've said this 1,000 times, Gus played better than I did. Gus deserved to be our starter. That was, and so I never could fault him for doing well. I could only fault myself for not performing the way I felt like I was capable. And far too often I felt like I tried too hard. And sometimes I was trying too hard, maybe not as successful. And I just, so I always felt like that was an opportunity for Gus, and, and he played better. I can never deny that. And I'm very grateful that, when Gus came in, we started winning, got us an opportunity to start winning some games.
Yeah, I think we learned a lot from each other. I went on to 6 other teams. Heath went on to a few other ones, but I think that whole experience of what we went through together, the good, the bad, and the ugly, probably helped us grow up a lot. Like he said, we were both young. I was a little older than Heath. He came out of college early. I spent 5 years in college, so I was a little older, but it taught us a lot about who we were and how to deal with things. I had started a family. I was dealing with kids and friends and family. Like, you don't understand, like when you're in D.C., the family comes out of the woodwork when you say Heath.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you have a lot of cousins that come out.
But I think it was just an unreal experience. And I'm so glad that we finally, after all these years, got to talk and hear each other's story a little bit. And I appreciate everything you said. And Heath was he was very grateful in everything that happened. And, it was one of those things where Heath never looked down on anybody else, never said a bad word about anybody else, just went out and worked hard. And we're all just dealt the cards we're dealt.
Well, Gus, I had I think part of it helped closure for me. So I was in Charlotte. I was senior vice president at Duke Energy, and I was having a meeting at a restaurant and with an outside group, and we're talking, and I keep hearing this voice behind me. I'm thinking, I know that voice. And I turned around and looked, and it was North Turner. And I was, you always feel like you don't ever hold grudges or you hold something against someone, but he and I had the opportunity after he finished dinner and I finished dinner. We had an opportunity to have a conversation and talk. And I needed that more than probably anything in my life, that I needed some resolve there and a little bit of, I was probably holding a grudge that I really didn't realize how much that grudge really was, and I knew that it wasn't him. It was my performance, not him. But I just knew that there was something that I needed some closure. And so he and I had the most incredible conversation and talk. And, he was a new coach, and he talked through the things that, that he could have done better. And of course, I was saying things that I could have done better. And it was a great closure that allowed me to kind of feel good about my conversations with him, and something I've needed for a very long time.
No, I'm really glad you got that, because I was going to say I've never had that conversation with him. And that is a closure that I still think about sometimes, where that would be great to sit down and talk about everything that happened. Because at the end of my Redskins career, I had something happen to me that still was talked about everywhere. And instead of him embracing it and helping me through it, he really pushed me in a bad direction with it, and I had to deal with it. And I didn't let it affect me like some people would have. But, that's a closure I still haven't gotten. That would be very helpful. So I'm really, really glad you got that closure with him.
Yeah, and it's helpful in life, and I think I should have done a better job of maybe reaching out to him earlier, because at the end of that, I felt as good about that part of my life after having talked to him. I reached out to him when I was trying to make a decision. Do I go play backup Brett Favre or go compete for the starting job in New Orleans? And I asked him straight up, if you don't think I'm ready to be a starter and I need to go behind Brett, tell me, and that's where I'm going to go sign with the Packers after I led the Redskins. And he was like, no, you should go compete for a starting job down in New Orleans, and won the starting job there. And, we were in a great place. I mean, it was just one of those things that when you get injured early, it makes it difficult. But I'd had that conversation with him, whether or not I could play, but there was other things that we kind of need to clear up. So hopefully you get that opportunity. And if you do, come to Charlotte and I'll buy you dinner.
Oh, sounds good. Sounds good. I love Charlotte. It's a great town.
Good water park there I've been to.
Yeah.
So now you're out of the NFL. At what point do you see politics in your future?
It was a bad day. So when I was with the Redskins, when I was with the Saints and my brother was getting out of college, he and I had started a real estate company together. And so I always enjoyed business, loved business. And so we ended up starting it because I didn't know if I'd ever play again. So we started that. And so we ended up selling the company. So there was 4 of us that started the company, my brother and I, and 2 other guys that we hired. And in 18 months, we had 250 employees, and we were the fastest growing real estate company in the Southeast at the time without a merger. It was all organic growth. And so we grew it up, and, we were very fortunate that we sold it before the real estate crash and the financial crash happened. And I had moved from Tennessee, where we had the company, to my wife's hometown in Waynesville, halfway between where we live now and where I grew up. And we were raising money for nonprofits and really kind of helping the community out. And I wouldn't say I was retired. I was still doing some development work, but it wasn't to the magnitude that we had been prior. And so we had our kids, and so I was enjoying both kids. And people kept asking me, you ought to run for office, you ought to run for office. And I started getting a bunch of calls from Washington, D.C. I mean, people, kind of begging me to run, wanted me to be involved. And next thing I know, I kept seeing these numbers that would pop up. It'd be kind of funny who it was, but there was a 212 number that popped up on my cell phone. And of course, I sent it to voicemail, didn't realize that it was Bill Clinton. So, and I was like, man, that's pretty cool. So I called him back. And typically, even when you call the members of Congress back or senators back, they would, please hold, let me try to find, the congressman or the senator. And so they'd give you a little time to kind of think what you was going to say. And so I did that. I called him. Well, lo and behold, he just answers the phone. It was his personal cell phone number. He answers the phone. And we had about an hour conversation. And then after that, I really felt led to serve. I mean, he talked about, this country's given you, Heath, a whole lot, and you never served in our military, and you should consider serving in Congress. And I couldn't deny that. And so I really felt led to serve our country. And so going to Congress and made the announcement that we was going to do, and I had an uphill battle. I mean, it was a 16-year incumbent, a guy who had been in this office for 16 years, was a cardinal, which means he is a subcommittee chairman on appropriations. So was bringing a lot of money back to our community, and had won significantly, overwhelmingly had won the elections prior. And it was an R+12 district, which means that I was a Democrat, and that means, it was 12 to nothing, really, when you start the game.
Uphill climb.
And I had an uphill battle.
Yeah. So, all right. So you have a conversation with Bill Clinton, and everything I've heard about him is that when he talks to you, he just knows how to influence you and hit the right buttons.
He would have been Vince Lombardi if he was a coach. He is that type of influential person, charismatic, very genuine. I mean, and since then, he and I have become very close and got to know him over the years and spent a lot of time together, and someone that I truly consider a friend. He is the most charismatic, never forgets a person's name, which is probably one of the most unique gifts that anyone could have. I mean, I'm talking about people he hadn't seen in decades, and he would remember their names. It was just incredible. But just kind of learning from, the political angles and strategies of which he did and, he was involved in was pretty awesome.
So you weren't the first athlete in Congress. You won't be the last. But what is athletics, all the stuff that you've been through your life in athletics and sports, how do you compare that to the politics and what you went through in that area?
Well, I think, first let me start with the disappointing thing. I really got there was hoping that it was going to be a team, very similar to the way that we were with all of our, every team that we were ever on. We really were all pulling the rope in the same direction. I wanted our country to move in the right direction, and it didn't, even internally with even your own party, there was always controversy or issues or problems, and people wanted to do different things. And I never felt that team oriented, except within my office. And we created that within my office, and it was an incredible work environment. I had to beg my folks to go home at night, and we'd be in Washington, and they wanted to stay there. They truly loved the work which they did. And so we created that. And so then I met with another group called the Blue Dogs, which is the more moderate conservative members of the Democratic Party. And so that became my team. That became the people that I associated with. That was the group that I hung out with. That was the ones that we agreed policy-wise. And even if we didn't always agree 100%, we could actually come to common ground. And we worked with our counterparts, which was the Tuesday group, the moderates of the Republican Party. And so collectively, I felt like that group was a part of the team and represented 80% of America and their viewpoints. Unfortunately, we were a very small minority within Congress, and only the fringe groups, and certainly as time had went on, and it's still even worse today, that the fringe groups were controlling the political parties, and there was no way to kind of create a sense of compromise. Compromise was a four-letter word in Washington, and if you didn't stick to your guns and your way or the highway, then you voted against it. And so that was disappointing that the whole Congress had America first. I felt like they still to this day, they have their party first and then they put America second. There's some great people there. But I say that there's three types of members of Congress. There's a third that are there for all the right reasons. I mean, they truly may want to get to their paths to the same viewpoints, maybe an alternate path, but they truly are there for the right reasons on both sides of the aisle. Then there's another third there, I think, that are there for greed and power, that are there for their own personal gain. And then I think the other third, it's the only job they could ever hold down. They've never had any other job but to be a politician. And that's the unfortunate ones that, to me, that makes Washington not work the way it actually should in what I would consider a team atmosphere. But that being said, I love the folks that I had to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Got along with both political sides. When I left Congress, I voted 50% of the time with Democrats and 50% of the time with Republicans. So I kind of felt like that's where my district was. That's where America was, and had a 73% approval rating and decided not to run again.
Wow,
that's pretty hard.
That's going out on top.
Well, it shows you that, you've been through a lot in your life. You weren't a career politician to start with. You went into that phase. You said, this is enough. I know when to get out. You probably had enough of it. You probably were getting a little gray like me from it all. But, it's an amazing transition that you made from sports to politics. And now you leave Congress.
So for 5 years, I was senior vice president at Duke Energy. So we're the largest public utility in the United States, one of the largest in the world. So handling their external affairs and working with in a corporate environment was challenging. I would definitely say that some of those environments are far more political than Washington is, which was very interesting. once again, putting a team together. That's a thing that I really love and enjoy doing. And business has always been kind of a true interest of mine. I mean, I had a car wash business when I was 15 years old, and had 8 employees by the time I was a senior in high school. And so I love business. I love growing businesses. And so after getting kind of that corporate bug and kind of checking that box, I have a consulting firm now that we go in and we help analyze businesses. We grow businesses. We try to put businesses on the right path. We grow the revenue. We lower their expenditures. We help them with their marketing. We help them with their communications, their external affairs. And so I've hired, and a part of our team, we've got a very large network of former executives that are subject matter experts in multiple different fields. And so we go in and we help companies, work with private equity firms. We help them grow their margins and be successful.
So kind of my last question for you, Heath, is, so you've been through all this, you're doing some incredible things, you've been in real estate, business, I mean, you've been in Congress, for crying out loud. What would the Heath Shuler of today go back and tell that 20-year-old Heath Shuler in Tennessee before he gets drafted?
Oh, wow. I never say that. I think, I don't want to say that I would have never entered the draft again, but I would like to, because I think the family, and I mean, I am now living the greatest time of my life. I'm less in the spotlight than I've ever been since I left high school. I'm more in the background, but I'm having the time of my life now. And if it weren't for all of those different challenges, both challenges of being successful, because I think that creates its other sense of the successes that you have to overcome other hurdles and obstacles. Be humble. You have to, how to handle and manage yourself accordingly, because as quickly as you've gained it, you can be taken from you. And so, and the obstacles of overcoming challenges of playing in the NFL, and not living up to expectations, or not fulfilling the true dreams that I wanted to accomplish. And that to me has put me in a position now that I am having the time of my life with my family. The greatest time that I've ever spent is really the last 2 years of my life.
No, that is great, because I always say to myself, if I had to go back and tell that young kid back in the day, was be a lot smarter with your money, and don't go, when your daughter turns 1, don't go have a big birthday party for her, and keep your money in the bank, because you're going to want to go on vacation when you turn 50 to somewhere really nice.
I went to that party, though.
You did. It was a good party.
It was a good party.
It was a good party.
So in retrospect.
But I agree with everything you're saying, Heath. Is like those experiences made us who we are today. But, there's still some things that I know you had some people around you. I had some people around you, but there was just steps that, you wish you had that person in your ears helping you through some of those times. And I'm sure you did too as well.
Oh, yeah. And we've all had bad advice. I mean, we've all made decisions and we were given bad advice along the way. And that's okay, because I now am hopefully able to recognize those situations now in life. And, Gus, I just want to tell you, thanks for having me on your show, but more importantly than anything, thanks for us connecting. And I think this is going to be kind of another step one of multiple steps. And I'd love to see your family and see Annie again. And hopefully we'll get the chance to kind of reunite in person. But thank you for the person that you were when we was in Washington, because, we could have been adversarial and kind of butted heads, but not one time were we ever in a meeting that either one of us said anything derogatory toward one another, or said anything in the media that was derogatory. And so we maintain our composure, we maintain our integrity, and I think that's why you've been successful in life, and I want to thank you for that.
Well, no, I appreciate you saying that, and I want to thank you as well for doing all those things, because I had a great sounding board in my wife, and if I ever did say something stupid, I'd get home and get blasted for it. But Annie was great and really keeping me grounded, keeping me humble. And I appreciate you coming on. One last little segment we do, Heath. It's called No Huddle. It's our 2-minute drill. And Dave blasts a bunch of questions at you. And we want you to answer them without thinking. and just get them out. It doesn't take long, and then we'll break it from there. So, Dave, why don't you hit Heath with our no huddle?
All right, Heath.
All right, Dave. What's the situation? Are we backed up on the 20-yard line? What's our real 2-minute drill?
Georgia's going to win the game.
You got it.
So that's our situation.
I love it.
I'd go with his 6'10" high jump over the top. That'd be my go-to if I could do that. But
he could jump over the whole line.
Right. Okay. So here we go, Heath. This is called the no huddle. In your opinion, what's the most overhyped thing in sports today?
Excuse me.
What's the most overhyped thing in sports today?
Oh my! Most overhyped thing I think would be social media.
I agree, because I hate how they recruit kids today.
That's across the board in all aspects of life. In my
All
opinion,
aspects, social media. Everyone's got an opinion they can hide behind another name.
Oh yeah, anonymous. They have muscles behind that, but you don't see their face or their name. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Biggest pet peeve: honesty. Not people not being honest.
Well, he answered this one earlier. What's the loudest stadium you've ever played in? But I'm sure
it would still be the Swamp in Florida. You know, no NFL could. It's hard for any NFL team to have the loud volume that you actually have in the SEC.
So if you could be one other player, and I think he answered this earlier too, one other player that has ever played any sport, what athlete would that be?
Oh, gosh, I guess I mean, another sport. I mean, I guess it would have to be A-Rod. I mean, you know, A-Rod, I love the way he played the game of baseball. That would, I mean, as far as on the field stuff, I mean, he played it extremely well. I liked A-Rod. Wasn't necessarily always a Yankees fan, but I like to watch A-Rod. The other would, if it was football, it would have to be Earl Campbell.
Well, A-Rod had some nice contracts also, just as a cherry on top.
Maybe the biggest ones ever.
Like two of the largest ever, right? What rule would you change in sports? If you could change one rule, what would that be?
If it was on the collegiate level, I would say that you can't offer a high school athlete until the spring of their junior year, and that way, you know, I've got kids that I'm coaching and been around that were being offered in the 8th and 9th grade, and I see that, and they just lose complete focus of the real task at hand, and that's playing in high school and enjoying that process. To me, that's a detriment. The NCAA desperately needs to step in. They need to make some changes in a lot of different areas, the recruiting service type stuff. There's a bunch of things there that really need to be addressed.
So you've done all these amazing things in your life. I mean, I'm sure you're going to write a book someday. I see that the next step. There's going to be a movie about Heath Shuler. Who plays you in a movie?
Who plays me in a movie? Oh my goodness. All right. I guess I would say Dennis Haysbert. You know, the Allstate guy that played in the show The Unit?
Yeah.
The Allstate guy sits in the chair in the middle of the street. Dennis Haysbert. That's who I would say. I think he's one of my favorite actors. I just like his calm demeanor, his way he approaches things in the show The Unit.
I don't know if he has a 6'10" high jump, though.
Few do.
Yeah.
Last thing, what's your favorite TV show?
What are you watching right now? Is it Netflix? What are you watching?
Well, oh gosh, I do like The Unit. That's obviously one. Justified.
Really?
Definitely probably my top Justified Netflix show.
I could see Heath being have you watched Yellowstone yet?
Love Yellowstone. I'm a big fan of Yellowstone. Yes.
Yeah, I could see Heath being a big
I've got
Yellowstone.
that TiVo. That's I think it comes on tonight, actually.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Heath, Thanks for coming on the show. Loved catching up with you, and hopefully we can stay friends for a long time and stay connected.
Tell Annie hello for me.
Yeah, tell Nicole, the kids, good luck with Navy and his future career, and I can't wait to watch him on TV somewhere.
You got it. Thank you.
All right.
Dave, great to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks, Heath.
All right, Heath, take care.